Welcome to the next session. I think my mentor is there here and aptly fitting, the topic over there. While we are having heard to Auradkar sir saying many things on the emotional side in the society, what all are happening, what sort of adversities we come through, and how do we handle such adversities? Where do these people go through when they're meeting with a lot of emotions? Their emotions are overpowering on them. Can we have Arpita also spotlighted, please? When these emotions are going heavy and I don't have a confidant, I don't know where to go and how to speak and whom to speak, how can I rely on someone? That's when you require a counselor, because in our society going to a psychiatrist is still a taboo, and we may not require, because we may not have that kind of serious mental illness or something. We just wanted someone to just put us back on the track when our emotions are overpowering us, we don't know directions, we don't know our goals, and we just wanted that shoulder to rest there and talk to someone openly, freely, and just get that directions. And we have none other than my teacher, my guru, Sridhar, whom I've got trained on counseling. And we have a life skills trainer and a coach and a counselor, Arpita, to talk about emotional intelligence and counseling. Over to Muskan to introduce them, get them on to have the nice fire chat for us and build the fire for us. Thank you.
Very well. So, moving on, this is a 30-minute fireside chat on EI and counseling with Sridhar sir and Arpita ma'am. So, Mr. Sridhar is an MBA graduate from Osmania University and holds a master in psychology from IGNOU. After working for 3 decades in the corporate sector, he got interested in psychology. Since then, he has not only earned several certifications but also has started teaching psychology and conducted several workshops in many organizations. He was instrumental in putting up a 1 year online course with Banjara Academy and has been managing it for 5 years. Currently, he teaches English and psychology. He's a mentor and counselor as well, and delivers workshops on psychology, life skills, and self growth. It's an honor to have you, Sridhar sir. Welcome for this discussion.
Thank you.
We also have Arpita, who has 20 years of rich experience in management, human resources, and learning and development. She has a keen interest in understanding human behavior and holds several behavior management certifications. Ms. Arpita is an EQ practitioner, behavioral assessor, certified life coach, trainer, life skills trainer, and holds a postgraduate degree in counseling psychology. She has been applying positive psychology, facilitation skills, and NLP in coaching her clients and delivering training programs. So during the session, if you have any questions, please put in the chat box and I will be directing these questions towards the end. You can also mention if you want the question to be addressed by either Mr. Sridhar or Ms. Arpita. So over to you both. Hope you have a fruitful session and discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Muskan. Sridhar, I would like to acknowledge he has also been my mentor, my faculty. It's great to share this panel with you. I am honored. I would like to picture this.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing for me to share the space with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please start.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, I would like to thank Annapurna and the entire team for having put this together and included me into this wonderful summit. I mean, it's like after 5 months of hibernation, you just suddenly come out of the hibernation and you have got the world platform for you. So it's really wonderful because this is the first online thing that I'm doing in the last 5 months. Now, ever since the COVID shutdown, there was a complete hibernation, and I've come out of it because of this summit. So thank you, the complete team, for this opportunity to do this. Today, we are just looking at, Arpita and I are looking at how EI and counseling are related. And we will be exchanging notes essentially between the differences between EI and counseling, and how EI is very much a part of the counseling process. That's what she and I will be doing. Firstly, I would like to link how EI and counseling, how that link is there. First, I'll do that link for you. Counseling essentially is a process where somebody who is emotionally upset or emotionally distressed comes to you. And like how Annapurna had mentioned in the introduction, most people don't really need medical intervention. No, that comes at a very later stage, if you call it as a mental illness. No, mental illness are diagnosed and you get medicated for the mental illnesses. But there are lots of times when each of us goes through a lot of emotional turmoil in our lives. And where do this emotional turmoil come from? They come from our relationships, essentially, right? Our relationships give us the maximum amount of happiness, and yeah, they also give us the maximum amount of sadness, right? Most of our problems comes from relationships, work related, job related, or I would say when we talk of relationships, I would say that the maximum amount of problems comes from your relationship with yourself, right? How do you relate to yourself? That becomes the key, because if you look at the issues of self-esteem, if you look at depression, if you look at suicidal tendencies from people, you often find that it is the relationship with the self that is somewhere got disturbed, and people come to us for counseling process. And in the counseling process, what we essentially do is understand their emotions. I'm not going to solve anybody's problem as a counselor. I'm not here to solve anybody's problem as a counselor, but I'm definitely here to give emotional support to the other person who comes to me. So can I identify their emotions? Can I reflect their emotions back to them? Right? This essentially is what the counseling process is. And when we look at emotional intelligence, it's nothing but that, right? When we say the pillars of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, managing emotions, and motivation. Emotionally managing other people's emotions is again a key part of EI. So that's how EI and counseling are related. I'll just ask a quick question to Arpita. How do you perceive the difference between, let us say, EI coaching and counseling?
Okay. As you were talking, actually, I was thinking there's such a thin line, It's a
Yes.
very thin line between when you say EI coaching and counseling. Like most of us know, when, getting into a counseling session, there's a lot of taboos, one thing. So people, kind of hold themselves back. And the difference between coaching and counseling is what I come up with is in counseling, it's therapy. It's more therapeutic, where the counselor helps you to go back to a situation which is probably critical, some incident in your life, and where people are stuck in that moment, they are unable to come out. They want to come out of it, or they don't know what to do with the situation. So
Right.
that's where it becomes therapeutic, and that gets into a counseling process.
Mhm,
Right?
mhm. Yeah.
And when we look at coaching, when we look at EI coaching, we as an EQ coach, you touch upon the unconscious biases and triggers of the individual. We only look at triggers. What are the triggers? What made you come with those emotions? How did one react? Now, what are those emotions where you did not regulate on? Where can I help you regulate, understand, label the emotions? So that's where, as a coach, we are at a juncture where it's a very thin line. Like I said, either if the coach is not able to understand this, can get into therapeutic counseling. It can happen. But when the coach, as a coach, or if you're able to understand that this individual has reached a juncture in life where he knows he wants to let go of something, but is looking at a path ahead, is when coaching comes in. So we try to coach people on what's your path ahead? What are the triggers? Are you going to get triggered again? Are the situations going to be similar to you? How can you evolve yourself by overcoming those triggers? So that's what I would like to say is this very thin difference between counseling and coaching.
Absolutely. And when I think of EI coaching, and somebody asked me one time earlier, is EI coaching also a part of counseling?
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Can you share an experience
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
EI coaching you actually started coaching people and they came for counseling actually, and
Yes.
it just became coaching sessions?
Absolutely. So what happens is, if you look at a typical counseling process, I'll just take you through a typical counseling process so we understand that where does the counseling end and the EQ coaching begin after that point of time. What happens in counseling is that when a person comes to you, firstly they don't know you, they have been referred by you, or somebody has just mentioned your name, or they've just looked you up somewhere and they come to you and they want to talk to you about something very, very intimate, right? They're going through a traumatic process, they're going through a process where their emotions have been hijacked basically, right? And they're in an emotional turmoil, they want to come and share something with somebody, and here is the counselor sitting and they don't know how much to tell, how much not to tell, right? So if you look at the counseling process, the first part of the counseling process is always rapport building with the clients. No, unless I build a rapport with the clients where they feel comfortable to share things with me, they will never really open up and talk about the real deep issues with you, right? Often sometimes the counselors come to you thinking should they talk about it or not talk about it. They've not yet made up their mind at all whether to talk about an issue or not, because the issue could be relating to their marriage, it could be relating to their workplace, it could be relating to their self-esteem, right? And we are not in a society, we are not a society where we can openly discuss about our feelings and emotions, right? So our first part, if you look at it, the first stage of counseling is always about rapport building, getting to understand the client per se. We're not even trying to understand the problem, we are not yet got to the problem itself, nobody's stating the problem. We're trying to say, can I understand this person first of all? If I can't understand him or her, then the problem becomes secondary to me. If I can understand the personality of this person, where he is coming from, what his background is, then I can look at how do I help him to address the issue that he wants to talk about. So that part of it is done in the rapport building stage. And second stage comes in where we discuss what is the issue that's bothering them, right? And this takes a long process. I mean, where EI we might have fixed number of sessions, for a coaching kind of a program. In counseling, what happens, we don't really have a fixed amount of sessions. I can't tell the client, look, I'm going to give you 3 sessions and you got to talk to me about all your problems in the next 3 hours. I mean, it's not how counseling works, right? Because it's more of, back and forth, talking to them, getting to know them, talking to them about issues which is not even connected to the problem, trying to understand their childhood, trying to understand their parental background, trying to understand their domestic background. So all this takes a long time, long process. By the time the client is ready to talk to you, right? Once they talk to you, now you understand what the issues they are going with, help them to kind of come out and express it itself, right? If you look at the society, there's always been a stigma attached to going to a counselor, right? So actually, when I looked at this counseling, when I looked at this EI summit, I had an idea that I wanted to tell Annapurna that instead of calling them counselors, we should start calling them EI coaches in schools. That will be a tremendous change that can come about. Like suppose now in the schools, what happens is the stigma attached to if the child is asked to go to a counselor. The moment they go to a counselor, what is wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with me. That is the kind of thing that comes up. But now suppose you say go to a coach, that's a different kind of a thing.
Absolutely. It's a very sophisticated word when you say coach than to, saying counselor. I think, Sridhar, we lost you. Your net is probably not stable.
You continue, Arpita. I think we'll get back, Sridhar.
We'll get back.
Maybe
back.
You can. Yeah, you can tell your experiences of counseling.
Yeah, sure.
How did you feel? Yeah.
Definitely. Like Sridhar already mentioned, the rapport building happens even in coaching. It's not like you come to a coach and then you suddenly pick up an assessment and then you say, it's very hard. It is rapport building. Getting a person to get self-assessment on EQ is not easy because so many parameters are going to get thrown out. And it's a lot of reflection that a person needs to do. All right. So it's rapport building. First is trying to understand why that person wants to get into this. Do you have any goals towards it? Do you want to just explore yourself? What is it that is needed? So first, as a coach, coaches are nothing. Counselors, coaches are very similar. Like I said, very thin line difference between the two of them. Rapport building sessions. Only thing is the number of sessions in coaching could be exact numbers basically because it's goal driven. They come to you with a goal. They are in a juncture in life where they say, I've kind of regulated myself, so now I want to know what next. I want to progress myself. So that's when you come to a coach. Okay, and when we
Yes, Arpita. Can you take up one example of having done the counseling session or the coaching session when someone came and approached with your emotional issue? How did you go through and how did you put that, your knowledge on life skills, coaching, counseling, everything put together, and how did you empower that person? Because we are all non-directive counselors also. So throw some light on that, please.
Absolutely, you're right. Okay. Now, giving you a small incident, sharing an experience of mine. If most of you might be thinking, how do I become a coach? Right? So, how do I become a coach? First thing is understanding your own self. So, we need to undergo that process. Have I understood my emotions? Am I able to label my emotions? Am I able to regulate them before I step onto a coach's shoes? Okay. So, I had this, person who approached me couple of okay, I'll give you yeah, so this was a counseling session, basically came as a counseling actually. And this girl, very young girl, I would say she was in her 12th 11th 12th standard kind of a situation. And she had lot of mood swings, I would call that. She would shift her moods from positive to negative very easily. This was affecting her academic. And so I had to go back and find out, like as a counselor, we generally dig into the history, like all of us now, right? So I had to dig back into what really, she had to narrate a story to me, what happened from her childhood till now. Was there a particular incident? What was it that led her into moving this kind of situation? So there was a trauma. So the trauma was she had lost her mom, and it was a big accident, and the entire family was involved in the accident. So we have Sridhar back. So the entire family was involved in the accident, and but this was left on her mind. She was not able to
Hello?
overcome this. Sridhar, welcome back. We lost you for some time.
We'll
Okay,
figure out.
so I had to actually, it was difficult. Like when we talk about empathy and how we get emotionally involved. Initially, when I met this counseling, I found it very hard. I had to break my energy from going to her. I had to really break that. And that is where a counselor or as a trained counselor or as a coach, we have the art of, breaking up that relationship. Otherwise, I was going to mull over this and I would have thought, okay, what is going on with this child? How can I help her? I would have spent many days on this. And that's when as a counselor and when you have EI, into counseling, you know to withdraw yourself. It's so important where and at what juncture that you will withdraw. That's the most important thing. So I did counsel her. We went, I mean, in fact, she didn't even want to write her 12th board exams. She said, I don't have the mood. I don't want to write my exam. Her father was panicking. He's like, I'm fine if she takes a gap year, but it's very hard, like every day, one day she says, I will go, one day she says, I will not take up the exam. So finally, I was counseling her on the phone. I think we met only once. We met twice. And the rest of the things were all just over the phone. And she wrote back to me and said, Arpita ma'am, I took up my exam and she passed with, I think, below 70%, but she did pass. And that was very important. So that was very important that somebody takes the path of what the counselor says, because I didn't want her to mull on what happened in the past for her. She had to let go of that somewhere. So I was empathetic to her. I was not driving her too much, but then that's where EI comes in. That how empathetic can you be? Where do you need to draw the line and allow the coachee or the counselor to move on their own? I cannot give directions to them, right? We're not supposed to give them directions. So she came back with her own plan. How is she going to chalk out her day-to-day activities, and what is it that she's going to ease her tensions? I think Sridhar is back, Sushma.
Sridhar is back now.
I think
okay. While Sridhar is getting joined, I just wanted to because Sridhar is there. Yeah. Go ahead. Sridhar, can we hear it from you? Yeah. Is your internet stable? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think when I last left, I was discussing about how EI coaching comes towards the end of a counseling session, right? So that's how EI and counseling are so intimately connected that there's a very thin line dividing between EI and coaching, right? And there's one more area that happens in counseling that I wanted to talk, where EI so is got intimately connected, and it's what many of you have been hearing about in the last 2 days about empathy, right? So empathy is something that's very, very critical to a counseling process, right? Am I being heard?
Yes,
Am I connected?
yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
go
can.
ahead. You're completely
Hello,
clear.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I think we have very unstable internet connection because it's pouring in Mysore and as well as in Bangalore at this point of time.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Very much towards the South Bangalore. So I think we might lose on some connectivities. But I just wanted to share, as Sridhar joins in, I would say I would connect it from Auradkar sir's example as to when you meet such kind of people, when some prostitutes come, when I think now Chinmay has also put, what happens when drug addicts come to us, what happens when you have schizo patients coming and all. So Chinmay, I would say schizos, how can you identify whether he's a schizo or not at this point of time when you're a counselor? So probably we will not be able to do. But what we can do as counselors is take the person. Schizo people also have emotions, just go with the emotions and see it, figure it out. If you're personally not comfortable, as a counselor, if you are not personally comfortable, then you could refer it to your another counselor or something. We as a community of Banjara counselors, we are almost 100 people in our network. Now I cannot do counseling wherein it is of any child related issues and all. So what do? I have my community member wherein I pass on to that. Arpita is good in teenage counseling. She does career counseling and things like that. For me, it is a workplace counseling or a women counseling. Again, in the women counseling, if you're talking about domestic violence, sexual abuses and things like that, I think we should park it off, because as a counselor, sometimes we are not comfortable at certain things. So immediately alerting ourselves and our emotions, applying our own EI in our own personalities, and then feeling whether I am comfortable to handle this case. That's quite important for us as a counselor to proceed. And having said, I think we had amazing counseling sessions with different kinds of ecosystem people, and and all said and done, I think we come from the non-directive counseling school. That is, what does that mean? That means that, see, we would not direct or anyone to do this kind of action. That means so people come to counselors by thinking that, अरे मेरे पास problem है, आप कुछ solution दे दो. No, counselors are not there for solution. They will never give a solution. A proper trained and certified counselors will not give any solutions. They would only be there with them to understand what has happened, to understand their emotions, and as Sridhar was telling, figure out a good rapport building process and let them narrate what has happened. Let us understand their fears, their angers, their relationships issues and things like that. Let us empower them to take self decisions and become goal directed. So that's the process which we go on. A directive counseling happens only in the two cases. One, if you have already told and 10 sides are there. So a child came to me at the age of 9, auntie, do you know I'm a complete failure? Then I told, okay, probably my expectation before I sat as a counselor, probably I thought he failed in his studies or something and all. Then sorry, he was not 9 years, he was 13 or 14 years child, and he was he was telling me what he has done at that point. So I thought, okay, probably around 9th standard, and he was 13 years and all. And he told, I'm a complete failure, auntie. So I wanted to do, my parents wanted me to meet you and discuss with you. Now I asked their parents, what is the academic excellence and all. They told me, yeah, fantastic and all. Now what has happened to this guy? We were thinking, when I sat, don't you think, his question, don't you think me as a failure? I tried committing 9 times suicide and I was not successful anytime. And imagine, so suiciders, their this one is first attempt, first go off. So if you think that cowards commit suicide, that isn't a right answer, because that is what has been my experience, because it needs lots of guts to do to take out your life, and a lot of emotion is involved, and they prepare very well. It's a very prepared, planted death. which we have seen. And these people come to us by telling that, and that person is having a lot of regret, guilt, shame, and and a lot of hatred towards self. So when we started this, and beyond a point of time, like Chinmay was asking, how did you do it? Supposing your day, I'm not the one right now, to beyond some 3 sessions to handle. So I took my community help to tell that, hey, because it's child counseling, I probably cannot empathize more than a 2 session or a 1 session. I think you should need much more attention. And somewhere we went into a direct counseling mode immediately. And the child needs a person of trust. He or she will not come if you tell them to accompany with their parents to sit in that session. Child needs open space, and tell that whatever, even if it is a bullying, even if it is harassment which has happened, sometimes parent harasses, sometimes one of the parent harasses as sexually abusing the person. So parent cannot be there. So treat that child also as a very good adult. Until unless the child is of 5 years, 4 years and things like that, probably there may be learning issues over there. So that's what we have to figure out as counselors. Else, I don't feel we should be entering those zones. But otherwise, when there is a child of 7, 8 and all, they will come and they will speak. Art therapy has been found as a very good integration for our counseling. We are also trained in art therapies. So there was a child who has come. She was around 7 years old. Then she didn't speak at all anything. She was put on, she was brought from, I think, one of the rural place of Karnataka, and she was put in the ashram, Sumangali Sheva Ashram, where I'm volunteer, and she didn't speak out. She didn't speak out, and then they brought her to the counseling session, and where we had sat and started seeing at her. And I mean, she was able to speak, she was able to do everything, but she was not at all opening her mouth. Then I told, okay, can you draw a picture of yourself with a lot of colors, everything kept in my place. I told, why don't you draw something of your interest, draw something of a kid in a rain. And I put everything. Ideally, if you see a kid in a rain, when they're there, they put all blues, waters, colors, everything and all, everything fine. She put a picture of a girl over there, and she put red bruises on these cheeks. Here, she put red bruises on her lips and on her private part, on her frock. And this, as a counselor, is a very much indicative for us. If you have learned art therapy, you know when red is being used. Red is a powerful emotion, and red is a color of emotion to understand. Then comes the conversations which you can do with her. What has happened, my dear child? What is this color indicating? Then she will open up. She will burst. A catharsis can happen, and then she'll do. This is one example. There's another example when we had gone to one of the homes where we had given a shelter to one of the girls, and there is no male at all in that shelter at all. It is, I'm not recollecting the name immediately, but then we all went for our counselors over there. And this girl was sitting, shivering into a corner. It's almost 3 days. She didn't eat at all, lean girl. She was just lying on the floor there. Then other women told what has happened. Then they told, yeah, she had an issue of something and all. I think there is an abuse which has happened. And she's there. Did you not try? They told, no, we tried to talk to her, but then they didn't talk. They couldn't do anything. And suddenly, one of the attender, driver, because they had a male driver for driving the van for certain things, loading and unloading. Suddenly, that it was not permitted in the vicinity of the premises that any man enters that, because it's a women's shelter altogether. And this person, while this driver entered, suddenly she saw that big face of him, that somehow he looked very difficult for her, and she yelled. She just yelled out. That after 3 days of silence, this girl yelled out. And that's when we held the child, because she was okay with a women touch, not with a male touch, of course, surely, and then cajoled her, held her. She was hardly 6 years, that's it. And then this girl then opened up with all of the catharsis happening by telling that, no, it is like I was molested, I was sexually abused, and none other than her own uncle. Imagine these things. Sridhar is back, I think. Sridhar has made.
Sridhar is back, yeah.
Sridhar, yeah, where is Sridhar? Can we have him spotlighted? Sridhar, are you able to hear us? Yeah, well, Sridhar, I was sharing all our journeys while we were doing our internship periods and post this, wherein we had gone to different homes, our experiences. Correct. and what kind of cases had come in front of us, the child, then integrating the art therapy, what we have learned, and positive psychology, of course, we had taken it from you and things like that. But if you could share some very, very practical examples which had come to you, either in cases of bullying, either in cases of any harassments and all, probably, I know many other, or any other intents, or your own.
So many.
you have many more wonderful experiences.
So many more. What is it that is so relevant that you would like to share over here?
Yeah.
And how much time do we still have?
Maybe
5 minutes?
We have just another 5 minutes or
Okay.
close.
Okay.
We already are closer to the next session. We couldn't take a lunch break, but I'm fine. I think people are enjoying our discussions. Our next panel is also ready.
Fine. I'll just take 5 minutes. I'll just take 5 minutes to highlight two aspects of emotional intelligence that gets connected to counseling process. Like one aspect of emotional intelligence which gets connected to the counseling process is what I will call as a burnout for the counselor. This is something that the counselors should be aware of, because see, unlike in EI coaching, in counseling, you always hear intense stories. Like you see the dark side of human behavior, you see the dark side of the human emotions. And sometimes it can get very overwhelming for the counselor, right? So the counselor needs to know that, yes, it's not like any other profession where you can just go on doing it. It can get overwhelming. And plus, besides that, you also have your own personal life, right? In your personal life, you could be going through a crisis, or you could be going through your own emotional upsets, where you're not able to do the counseling a justice to the client who comes to you, right? So here your aspect of emotional intelligence comes in, because you need to know where are your limits, right? Unless you know your limits and say, look, I think I've reached my limits. If I go further down this road, I'm going to break down. So at that time, it's important to acknowledge that, I don't want to take up some counseling sessions for the next X period of time. Right? This is another very critical aspect of emotional intelligence, where you draw your limits, right? Each of us have got our limits, and your intelligence, you are emotionally intelligent person if you can understand where your limits are. That's one aspect of EI and counseling I wanted to bring in. And the last aspect I wanted to bring in is where the aspect of motivation comes in as a part of EI. Motivation is again one more pillar of EI. And how does the counselor motivate himself or herself? Because what happens is, unlike other professions, here you don't really get feedback of how you are performed. You could do 3 sessions, 4 sessions with your counseling clients, and then they could just walk away and never come back to you. So nobody is kind of telling you, how did you perform? Right? Did you really do a good job? What is a good job in counseling? So I have often seen counselors get demotivated because they don't really get a proper feedback about, did they really help a person who had come to them, right? So here I want to bring in that the way you define success in counseling is very, very different from the way you define counseling in any other profession, right? Here you define counseling by, did you adhere to the process of counseling? No, not to the outcome. Your focus is not on the outcome of the counseling process, where you'd say, did I help that person to get back his job? Did I help that person to get back into the relationship? Or did I help the person to lift their self-esteem or anything of that sort? I'm not looking at the outcome of the counseling process here at all. I'm just focusing entirely on, did I do my job correctly? Now, what does that consist of? It consists of, did I give complete attention to the counseling? Did I listen to them with complete undivided attention? My thing was not wavering around. I was completely with them for the entire 45 minutes, 1 hour or 2 hours, whatever was the counseling process. Was I completely there? Did I have a mindful presence in the counseling session? Right now, that is a very important part of a counseling process, right? Was I there? Second, was I completely non-judgmental? Did I listen to the counseling without judging them? That's a very important part of counseling. If there's a judgment in the counseling process does not happen at all. And third thing, was I being empathetic to them? Did I understand their feelings and reflect the feelings back to them? Your emotional intelligence also comes in empathy. Empathy consists of 4 parts, right? One is to understand the state of the counselee. Second is to understand their feelings. Third is being non-judgment. And fourth is reflecting the feelings back to them. A person will feel understood if I can convey it back to them in words, gestures, that I have understood what they're going through. That is what empathy is about, and that's where the EA process comes in. Like, do I convey it back to them? So if I have done all my process correctly, my counseling session is a success. That's how you have to motivate yourself. You're not looking at the outcome of the counseling process, because the outcome will never come back to you. You may get to hear, you may not get to hear. Sometimes the counselees or the clients are so happy that you have actually given them the time, they may just feel overwhelmed that somebody hasn't heard them out. And as a result, they'll say, oh, this was a wonderful session for me. I feel so grateful. We can't really pump ourselves up because of that. Right? Having humility is an essential part of a counselor's role. You don't think I've solved people's problems. You never solve people's problems, but you empower them to solve their problems. That's how you look at the counseling process. So these are the different aspects of how EI and counseling are related that I wanted to bring in. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Fantastic,
Sridhar.
Sridhar,
I have a
fantastic.
question. I don't. We'll take questions from the
Go
chat.
ahead.
I'm just assimilating a couple of points that you said. Like I said, counseling, we'll be non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Now, would you counsel a person whom you know could be in relationships, as in within
Yes.
your known relationships? Would
Yes.
you like to counsel a person, because we already know that person very well, but they probably need some counseling, some
Absolutely.
intervention. I'm
Absolutely.
not saying counseling, they need intervention. So
Absolutely.
would you actually
What I would say is that, as long as you don't have vested interest in that relationship, you can counsel that person. Right? Let us say somebody comes to me with an issue, and if the result of this is going to affect me, right? Let us say my sister is going to come to me saying, should I do this or should I not do this? And I have a vested interest in the outcome of that counseling process, then I should not do the counseling process. I can listen to her. I can be empathetic to her. I can listen to her. But I should not be doing the counseling process for anybody if they have got a vested interest in counseling. Right? I can do my process as my brother, my sister. I can play those roles, but I can't play a role of a counselor if I am interested in the outcome. Right? The moment you're interested in the outcome of the counseling process, should she be with her husband? Should she leave the husband? Should she put the boy in this school or should she boy? I am also having an interest in that. Then I can't be a good counselor, right? Because I am interested. I'll have a bias to where I want to push her. Right? I already have decided she should be doing this, and I'll be pushing her into that area, right? So then counseling, that's not really counseling.
That's exactly what I did. So, when you highlighted that, I was like, okay. So this was my sister's daughter, my niece.
Yeah.
And my sister kept asking me, do you just spend some time with her, talk to her, talk to her? I said, look, I know her.
Yeah.
I know you. And
Yeah.
it's going to get very hard for me to say, I will counsel or talk to the child.
Yes.
More about career. It was more about career counseling. So it would be my interest, like you rightly said, it would have my interest on what I want her to focus on.
Absolutely.
Then I said, I don't want to handle this. Please excuse me. I will direct you to somebody who
Exactly.
is not so known to both
Exactly.
you and me, will be completely unbiased, and they can give you a clear picture.
Absolutely. I have often heard this statement say that, like if I have a problem, I'll always go to my husband or my wife. She is my best counselor. No, they won't be your best counselor if the issue you're discussing has got a vested interest for them, right? If the issue you're discussing doesn't have a vested interest in them, anybody can be a good counselor for you. But that should not stop us from bringing the counseling skills into all our relationships. Right? What stops you from listening to a person who wants to talk to you? What stops you from being empathetic? What stops you from being non-judgmental? We can bring our counseling skills into every relationship, but every relationship can't become a counselor-client relationship. That's something we need to understand.
Absolutely. Thank you both, Arpita and Sridhar. And I would say that when we were learning counseling classes from Sridhar, I think even we would afford to miss another faculty's class, but not Sridhar's class. Sridhar's class was completely 100% full, and not even one single student would move from here to there. That's because that is the power of his, the way he taught us and the way he gave us our counseling techniques. Thanks to you, Sridhar, and amazingly, we are just still blossoming, and we will learn from you more and more. Thank you so much. A deep gratitude to you. So from Emotionalytics and MEQ, Certificate of Appreciation. This is a small token of appreciation to you, sir. Sridhar, for sharing your beautiful insights. I will definitely coordinate you one more class and have it from you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I look forward.
And can we have? Thank you, Arpita. Thank you so much once again, my friend, my dear. I know we both are staying together on this process. Thank you. We did many counseling process together, and both of us, each other, have been also counselors to each other also. Though we know each other. Either we have we have been sponsored with a tree which we have planted. Our partner, our gratitude partner, Gaps Digital Solutions, has sponsored this tree, and we have planted your tree in Karnataka. Same thing, I think, Arpita, we have planted for you also a tree. And thank you, Gaps Digital Solutions, for sponsoring this tree. Thank you very much.